Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we are tackling a pretty universal headache, right? We're talking about dealing with a fierce enemy or maybe that intense, overwhelming stress of a lawsuit. Now, your first instinct is probably to just hire a lawyer and build a massive wall of defenses. But what if the true root of your legal battles isn't just about facts and evidence? What if it's actually written in the stars? Today, we're doing something a bit different. We are blending the highly tactical, cutthroat world of civil litigation with the esoteric, karmic interpretations of Vedic astrology. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with strategy for the courtroom and then look into the house of enemies. From there, we'll explore Rahu, the shadow planet, check out the upcoming 2026 Rahu transit, and then we'll finish up with some practical remedies and resolutions. Okay, let's dive right into this. Just take a look at the fascinating contrast between these two entirely different ways of looking at conflict. On one side, you have mundane, earthly leverage, right? A lawyer's strict legal brief filled with causes of action, pretrial discovery, and expert witnesses. It is extremely grounded, rigid, and intensely practical. But then, on the other side, you have this cosmic strategy found in a Vedic birth chart. This means understanding your sixth house, settling your karmic debt, and navigating planetary transits. Well, today, we're going to learn how to master both. Section 1. Strategy for the courtroom. Preparing to win. So, before we look up to the stars, we really need to get our earthly tactics straight. According to the National Jurist, you absolutely must have a clearly defined litigation strategy early on. You can see the rigid sequence here. You map out causes of action, you navigate pretrial discovery, and you retain your expert witnesses long before you ever get to a trial. Now, here is the crucial takeaway. Over 90% of civil lawsuits settle out of court, sure, but you cannot prepare your case assuming that it will. By preparing to go the absolute distance and win in court, you give yourself the ultimate leverage to force a favorable settlement. Moving on to Section 2, the House of Enemies, the sixth house in Vedic astrology. Let's ask a really wild question. What if your legal strategy is completely flawless, but you're still drowning in conflict? Well, in Vedic astrology, the sixth house of your horoscope represents litigation and fights. But why do we even have enemies in the first place? It actually comes down to this concept of Shad Ripu, which translates to our six internal weaknesses: desire, anger, greed, attachment, dogmatic pursuit, and jealousy. The profound esoteric truth here is that your outward enemies, like, say, a bitter business partner or a fierce rival, are often just physical manifestations of those six internal weaknesses. They're basically just balancing out a cosmic ledger. But hey, the sixth house isn't just about suffering. It actually dictates how we defeat our opposition. This builds into an incredible planetary alignment called Dimanta Yoga. When the lord of your core intelligence perfectly synchronizes with the lord of your enemies, it essentially grants a person this radiant, almost supernatural intelligence for problem solving. This is exactly what gives a person the strategic brilliance a CEO or a lawyer needs to ruthlessly outmaneuver powerful opponents in a high-stakes courtroom. It's a real game changer. All right, Section 3. Rahu, the shadow planet in the sixth house. Now, if you happen to have the shadow planet Rahu placed in your sixth house, the standard rules of engagement simply do not apply to you. As this profound quote notes, Rahu does not move in straight lines. It distorts them. It bends conflict into unfamiliar shapes. See, Rahu governs illusion, ambition, and materialism. And when it's parked in the house of litigation, it creates wildly unexpected legal complications. The case will literally change shape while you're still trying to understand it. Evidence feels incomplete, and then suddenly there's way too much of it. It creates this heavy psychological weight because your mind is just looping over the problem, struggling to ever find rest. So if you find yourself locked in a tough dispute right now, this is the big question you've got to ask yourself. Are you dealing with reality as it actually is, or are you dealing with layers of confusion? Rahu feeds suspicion. It feeds over-analysis. It makes communication super slippery and boundaries incredibly blurry. In a legal dispute influenced by Rahu, interpretation becomes so much more important than just the facts alone. Different versions of the truth exist all at once, and meaning becomes entirely negotiable. But here's the crazy paradox of it all. Rahu actually gives you a massive advantage. While it definitely brings confusion, Rahu in the sixth house is considered one of the absolute most powerful placements for overcoming adversaries. Check out these traits. It bestows an extraordinary strategic mind that fights in highly unconventional and, yes, even ruthless ways. People with this placement thrive in complex tech disputes and they're great at handling corporate secrets. But there is a catch. Look at that final point. You run the risk of obsessing perpetually over conflict, like you might literally create enemies just to have someone to defeat. Section 4. The 2026 Rahu Transit, a cosmic shift. So Rahu is always in motion, right? And coming up on December 5th, 2026, it is making a major transit from Aquarius into Capricorn, triggering a massive karmic shift. If we look at the most affected signs, Capricorn, Taurus, Cancer, and Virgo ascendants, you guys are going to face some intense karmic lessons and a sudden need to balance ambition with personal responsibilities. Meanwhile, on the flip side, the signs in the beneficial column, Scorpio, Pisces, and Leo, you are positioned to see huge surges in courage, wealth creation, and honestly, the ability to easily crush your competitors during this phase. Finally, Section 5, Remedies and Resolutions, Bridging Both Worlds. Okay, so how do we actually conquer our enemies using everything we've just learned? We attack it from both sides. First, you absolutely use your earthly leverage. You prepare to win your case so thoroughly that you can initiate strategic settlement discussions from a position of total power. But while your lawyer is handling all the paperwork, you have got to pacify the chaotic energy of Rahu. And the astrological remedies for this are actually pretty surprising. They suggest things like feeding birds and stray dogs daily. Literally, you could be drafting ruthless summary judgments while also feeding the local strays. You can also donate 1.25 kilograms of black Arad dal on Saturdays, or chant the Hanuman Chalisa or Rahu Bij mantra to clear those illusions clouding your mind. And finally, wearing a hessonite garnet set in silver is said to regulate Rahu's intense adversarial drive, turning all that chaotic conflict into genuine success. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to consider regarding whatever obstacles you're facing in your life right now. Will your next victory come from a flawless legal brief, or will it come from the alignment of the stars? Honestly, maybe the greatest strategists in the world know that ultimate triumph relies on mastering a little bit of both. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the mechanics of conflict, karma, and strategy.